This is going to be a quick tutorial on how to do Lab 4, which is the pop music production for libraries. So first things first, you're going to go over to week 12 in Canvas and you're going to download all of the stems for Lab 4. Once you have it downloaded, I want you to open up whatever DAW you prefer using and import all the files. You'll notice that they're all normalized and they're all loud, so that this way you have to start the mix pretty much from scratch. I'm going to be doing mine in Logic as it's my DAW of choice. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn all those files down by about -7, and then we're going to go ahead and organize the session a little bit. I'm not going to walk you through the entire mixing process, but I can at least show you how to organize it. I like to have all my drums on top and in a very specific order, and then we're going to go bass, synth and keys, guitar, orchestral elements, and then sound effects. So I want to have my kick, snare, clap hats, bongos, congas, cowbell, crash cymbal. I think there's some more percussion. Yeah, there's a reverse cymbal right there and some toms. Okay, so let's bring those up as well. Boo, 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 boo. Okay. So the reverse cymbal is going to go down there, and then the toms are going to be right after the clap, but before the hats. Okay, and then next thing we're going to do is let's get the basses. So something you'll notice about the basses is that I have this split into two kinds of bass. I have a sub bass as well as a actual slap bass for the tone, right? So when mixing this, I think the best thing to do is, because the slap bass has a little bit of it's not the clearest fundamental frequency on earth. So what I do is I cut off around 130 hertz, anything below that on the slap bass channel, and then that'll be filled in by the sub bass. So if you listen to the slap bass by itself, it sounds fine, but when you add in the sub bass, it sounds a lot. You cut out your low end and then you add the sub bass and it sounds a lot better. Anywho, so let's go ahead and keep organizing. We want the piano, we want the Rhodes, and we want, is that it? Oh, the psychedelic lead, that's a synthesizer. So we'll put that right after the slap bass. I'm going to go piano, Rhodes, and then the synth. Then we've got our guitars. And let's do this. I'm going to do all the brass and stuff like that on top, and then all the strings right underneath that. I'm pretty happy with that. And then we'll put all the risers down at the bottom. Those are going to be our sound design layers. So once you have this all kind of organized, I'm going to go ahead and pull up the mix window, and I'm just going to go ahead and turn these down again by an additional like 1 dB. You don't have to do this. This is just, I know this is where I want to be at the start of my mix. And we're going to go ahead and organize now. So all these tracks are here and they're all individual, but the easiest thing to do when making library tracks is build submixes. Because if we actually go over to the library music production project, you'll see that I want all these different variations of it. Like I want a full mix. I want a mix with no leads. I want a mix with no leads or strings. I want a drum and bass only and a drum only and then 2 different stingers, right? So the easiest way to go about that is to build submixes, or think of them as like group faders, submixes. You could do them as a form of folders stacks or anything, or track stacks if you want. I like doing it the old school way of having the different auxiliary sends, right? So I'm actually just going to go ahead and open. I'm going to create a new auxiliary channel strip, and we are going to create this and add it to the window. We're going to call this drum. Let's call it drums. And we're going to go ahead and make the input on that a bus that we're not going to use for anything else. So I'm going to do 10. And then let's go ahead and make a couple copies of this. Rename them. So let's make this one bass. We'll make this one keys, and then guitars. And then we'll name this one orchestral. And then we'll make one more, and we're going to call that one SFX. And we're going to move that down to the bottom. So we now have all these different faders for it, and we're going to go ahead and start populating them by sending the outputs of different tracks to the inputs of those different submixes. So we're going to go ahead and grab all these, and we're going to make them all a different bus input, right? So we now have bus 10 for drums, 11 for bass, 12 for keys, 13 for guitars, 14 for orchestral stuff, and 15 for SFX. And so let's go ahead and start adding stuff to those, right? So if I put all my drums, we'll set their bus output to 10, and then all the bass we're going to send to bus 11. Keys and synths go on 12. Guitars go on 13. The orchestral elements go on 14. And, oopsie, I missed one. And then the sound effects will go on 15. Reason for doing this is just because, like I said earlier, it makes it way easier in the future. When you're mixing, or when you're printing your different variations, you can just mute things here, right? Instead of having to, like if I want a drum and bass version, I'm just going to mute these other 4 channels. And then boom, hit bounce or render or whatever, and you've got it done. So yeah, it's also really nice because you can do group mixing on this. So if you finish your drums, you can add parallel compression here, or you know, say your guitars sound great, but you notice as you're mastering that everything's a little bit hot in the high end, just do that fix here, right? So yeah, once you've got that going, you should be good to go. You can start mixing right away. So you'll notice everything is super loud, but you can go through and mix it like you would anything else. I will take a moment to kind of highlight a few things. One thing you're going to run into is your kick and your sub bass are going to conflict a lot, right? Especially in the low end. So one thing you can do is called side chaining or side chain compression. There's a bunch of different ways of going about it, but I'll talk about my preferred way to do it. So side chaining is basically just, it's a shorthand term for any sort of side chain compression where one audio signal is listening to another, and generally it does something when it hears the other one. So if my kick plays, my bass channel will have something listening for the kick, and then it will duck the volume of the bass down while the kick is happening, right? You can do this with a compressor, or my preferred way to do it is to do it with a noise gate. So let's go ahead and send our kick over bus 1, and then over in my noise gate plugin, I'm going to set the sidechain input to bus 1, which is our kick, and I'm going to put it in ducking mode. So basically, whenever the kick hits and it makes a sound, this will hear it and affect the volume of the sub bass channel. So I'm going to say whenever it hears anything below -9 or anything above -9, we will duck by X amount. I'm going to go by like 35 dB. I'm also going to set the look ahead pretty high. That basically, software-wise, just gives it more time to react to the kick's input signal because it's listening to it beforehand. And then I'm going to set the tack to 1 millisecond, because if you put it at 0, a lot of times you'll hear a click. The hold to 40 milliseconds and the release to about 30 milliseconds. What this means is so that when the gate hears anything over -9 dB, it is going to duck the volume down by 35 dB. It will take 1 second or 1 millisecond to start that. It will hold that volume dip for 40 milliseconds and then release it back up to normal over 30 milliseconds. So let's hear what that sounds like. You can kind of see when it's opening and closing, right? You can kind of see when it's opening and closing. And if you mix in your real bass, sounds great. You're not losing any of the attack from your bass's tone and feel, but the low end is being compressed when the kick happens, still allowing for a really nice clean sub frequency, or fundamental frequency. But yeah, so that's something you're going to run into. The other thing I wanted to talk about is the strings here. You'll notice a lot of times there are two different channels, like let's go here, Metropolis arc, short and long. You'll see that these were two different string patches, right, when I was writing the tune, and so one of them is for all the short or staccato notes, and one patch is for all the longer held notes. So if you listen, right, and so you will be responsible for blending that all to sound kind of clean and like one whole thing, you know what I mean? Make it sound like one group of instruments instead of two separate patches. The other thing is that over here towards the middle of the section, you're going to hear it drops out to kind of a build, right? Specifically right here, I think you could probably do some cool stuff with automation to make it really build and get hype before the drop hits. But yeah, so anywho, those are kind of the notes and things I wanted to talk about in this. Last thing we're going to talk about is how you make a stinger. So a stinger is just any sort of end cap, pretty much, is the way I would think of it. If you have a piece of music and it has to have a nice clean ending, because editors who are working on TV and stuff, they want to have a clean ending to quick end the song so they can move on to the next one to fit the tone of whatever's going on screen. So the easiest way to do that is to just select all of this, listen for the last bar and the last hit. Perfect. So we're just going to chop it, drag it over here. So this is going to be stinger 1, right? And then stinger 2, you can do sort of whatever you want with for stinger 2. You can make it have no leads, that's what I would do, or you can rearrange what's here to make something, but I would just remove the leads. That's how I did it when I turned it in. But yeah, that's about it for this. This project will be extra credit, so if you are working on it and doing it, just turn it in by the start of the last class and you will get extra credit points for however well you did. So yeah, anywho, take it easy and I will see you guys next time. Bye.